Hello, how are you? I believe you're doing great where you are. And welcome to our two-day class where we're going to deal with gender and development, famously known as GAD. And in gender development, we'll be looking at men and women and how they contribute into the agenda of development in our different communities and even in our countries. So if you're new here, please do not forget to subscribe or click on the notification button or comment if you've been enjoying our classes and if you are able to share or any input and feedback about us. So keep with me until the end. So the concept of gender and development, which we've generally said it's known as GAD, it's actually an approach that focuses on the social construct basis of understanding the differences and unequal relations between men and women. However, it works more on challenging the existing gender roles and relations and recognizes, most importantly, is recognizes the roles men and women contribute in development. And by development, we are looking at aspects of widely, education, health, policy, and all that. So, how men and women conduct themselves in our society has a very big influence in our development. That's why we are using this word gender and development, looking at how men and women are contributing in their own capacities to promote development or contribute to the development of our different societies. So, it's an approach focusing on the constructed basis of differences and unequal relations between men and women, but emphasizing the need to challenge the existing roles and relations and recognizing that men and women contribute to the development of the different societies. So this is a very important part because it forms a major part of how our community grows and is balanced. So like if you come on this picture, these men and women are balancing something here, and this but then you need to understand when you look at gender development, it's shifting from looking at people just like men and women, but you're looking at building a relationship between men and women. You want to ensure that the men and women are working together for a common goal. So, gender development focuses on social, political, cultural, and economic factors that determine how men and women participate in order to control and access resources and opportunities. So it looks at, like avoid looking at men bundled in one place and women bundled into another place, but look at these people as a blend of two genders who both in their own capacities are building a contribution into the community. So you are working on relationship between men and women, either in the areas of social, political, cultural, or economic aspects that are contributing to how men and women can participate in controlling and accessing resources and opportunities. So the gender development, it's a transformative approach that looks at setting agendas that are more impact related and are looking into a bigger picture of building the capacities of both men and women. So, to understand the deeper concept of gender and development, you need to understand that there's some terminologies that you will meet like on a daily basis because those are what define gender and development. For example, the first one we know is gender equality. And with this gender equality, there have been a lot of stories coming around from it. Most people referring to it as women empowerment. Others are calling it feminism. Others are calling it sexism. All those words. But gender equality is actually a development concept that was brought up to define it as a state of which there is access to rights or opportunity that is being unaffected by gender. Or you can talk a state whereby gender have equal rights to access to opportunities and other essential services in our society. So this is a state whereby there's no discrimination in terms of access to rights and opportunities for both gender. So if you look at our photo here or our picture here, you can see like you have different distribution of careers. We have the medics, We have other, like this looks like a telecommunication agency. So these opportunities are accessible to all these genders, and it is not distributed based on the gender. It's equally accessible to all of these people. So it's saying that the opportunities are getting accessible to all of these genders without discrimination of any of them. However, the opposite of gender equality is gender inequality, whereby there is discrimination of access to rights and opportunity on the basis of sex or gender, such that one gender seems to be routinely privileged and prioritized over the other. So however, the other term we have is gender equity. And by gender equity, we mean an aspect whereby a process of being fair to both men and women. So, here with fairness, we mean that we use our available resources, or we use what is in our capacity to ensure that everyone has fairness in terms of access to resources, opportunities, and so on. So, mostly this works with distribution of resources, where we provide resources based on the needs of that particular gender. So if, for example, men and women need cancer treatment, then you look at how fair can we be? Is it fair if you allocate 10 billion to both of them, and yet you realize that one gender doesn't need 10 billion, maybe they just need like 2 billion for them to access these services. So you look at who needs most and who is done with little. So for example, let's look at this aspect of equity that is being demonstrated here, that here we say in equity, we become fair by ensuring that you give to that particular gender what they basically need, and not because the resources are there. So, for example, you want to enable these two people to access them resources. But you see, the women maybe need some push or need some help to access it. But the children, they need more help to access the same resources. So in this case, with equity, you are distributing resources based on fairness and needs, and not just based on an aspect of equal access to resources. And this is where now they say currently there is a lot of debate around. So, what is equality and what is equity, and how different are they? Equity is based on fairness, while equality is based on equal access to resources. But now, the measurement of how much is equal is where the question is. And they're saying sometimes equality doesn't make sense, because you're saying we want to provide equal access, but you do not look at how do we provide this equality to people, because the energy we put is equal, and it says that some people do not actually achieve this equality because apparently it's not possible to provide equality to everyone. So, for instance, the equality you may give to men may actually not be equality that is needed by the children. So, they're saying equity is more inclusive as opposed to equality, and people still feel equality is not very inclusive as opposed to equity, which puts into consideration what the other person needs and gives those requirements as per their needs. But then we have the other term that we call gender aware. And in gender aware, here we are saying this is the ability to view society from the perspective of gender roles and how this has affected women's needs in comparison to the needs of men. So, however, gender awareness is a good aspect because it promotes a state of betterness for both men and women. So, with gender awareness, you're being a gender activist or being a gender advocate. You're looking at it in such a way that the aspect that you're able to view society in the lens of men and women, then you can be aware to know that whatever I am doing, is it promoting betterment for either men or women? And who are you targeting? So gender awareness mostly comes with gender targeting, where you become clear whom are you working for and what are your benefits from it. So with gender awareness, you are growing this perspective where you understand the needs of men and the needs of women and how you can work towards them and promoting objectives that are directed to it. So having discussed all these aspects of gender and development, remember with gender and development, we are looking at wide spectrum of target areas that needs to be checked on. And there's so many. So there are some that I saw that we can highlight here. The gender development does not look alone just at jobs, aligning resources and all that. It looks at as how many areas can we work around to ensure there is equity, equality, awareness, promotion, and all that. So, for example, there's a lot of areas around legal framework, like access to legal rights or access to legal litigations, freedom and all that. There's work around poverty eradication, especially for labor and economy, where people are looking at how do we bring women economic empowerment to the society, looking at the disadvantaged women, single mothers or women who have poverty issues. How do we ensure that all that population is catered for? Access to education, access to affordable and proper healthcare, land, housing, and agriculture. There's a lot of advocacy being done on environment and natural resources. This is access to natural resources and division of natural resources. Peace and security, for development to take place, there is need for peace and security so we can promote cohesion between men and women. Very key. But again, we have more, like governance, power, and decision making. Are we working to ensure that there's more participation of men and women in development or in governance? Like, are we working to ensure that there is proper access of information and technology for both men and women? Respect for human rights for all, promoting preventing intersectional discrimination, prevention of sexual and gender-based violence, girl child and the boy child, working with the media to promote advocacy and prevention of all this harm and violation of rights, promoting access to justice. So the list is endless, but this is priority areas for development when you're looking at gender. And luckily, this had been generated from the Kenya gender policy that was developed in 2019 and was looking into how we can promote more inclusiveness and development for the men and women in our communities. And luckily, we just have to appreciate that when we embrace gender and development, you need to appreciate that there will be impact that comes around with it. And one of it is proper resource allocation. When we consider equality and we consider equity, then there's proper allocation of resources. We are able to reap on elimination of gender discrimination and violence. There's policy change that whereby we have policy change that are positive and a development mindset whereby people look into how can we harness on gender and promote development in our economy or in our community. There's equal access to essential services, like health, justice, and all that. And there's improvement on our human rights in general. Our freedom and fundamental rights as humans is very key when you discuss the issues of gender as an effect of men and an effect of women. So it's very important because gender plays a very big role on even developmental planning, budgeting, and also execution of implementation targets and also activities. So that was it on gender and development. And like I said, if you really like more about us, you can subscribe, click on the notification button, and don't forget to share these videos with your friends. Welcome them to this channel and let them benefit from our work. Thank you and see you next time.